Mr. Moeller will be joining me. This is Mr. Moeller. My daughter loves teeth. I don't know. She takes after me. Hi, welcome or welcome back to the channel. My name is Sarah and this is my weekend review for the past week. I believe this is the 3rd week of January. So this was a pretty solid week as far as reading goes. I read about the same amount of manga and novels, and my manga will, of course, be in a wrap-up video probably in about a week and a half for the full month of January, because I know not a lot of people enjoy the manga content, so I thought I'd lump it together on its own. So just go straight into it. I don't have a lot of time. It's been a very bad day, so I'm trying to get this done before the family gets home. The first book that I finished right after I finished filming last week was A Very Merry Bromance by Lissa K. Andrews? Andrews, yes. I almost said Anders. That's not it. This is a super, super cute Christmas romance, and this is in the Bromance Book Club series. And the first thing I will say is that I do think you can read this one on its own. I think this one stands alone great, and this is actually probably my favorite Bromance Book Club book so far. I honestly didn't think I would like Colton that much. I thought I would like Vlad more, but Vlad's book, which was the previous book, didn't work as well for me as this one did. It could have been the trope combo, because I love a grumpy sunshine. In this, Colton is a country star, and he is our sunshine. He's basically a Christmas elf. He loves Christmas, and he's very optimistic. And our heroine, whose name I can't remember, is the grump who hates Christmas. And they have had a previous one-night stand, and he's been pining for her since. And they come up with a fake dating arrangement. Sort of fake dating, and he says he will make her love Christmas, and that's kind of where the story kicks off. I will say there is a lot of triggers in this for abusive family and toxic relationships within a family. Her family was truly terrible. Normally I don't enjoy reading about that just because that is very close to home, but it was handled well here, and I liked how Lissa K. Andrews kind of represented what that's like, kind of what it does to you, and how our characters stood up to them in the end. I really appreciated that and enjoyed it. So this was a huge win for me. Probably my top Bromance Book Club book so far. Yeah, I think it might be. I can't think of one of the ones that beat it out. So yes, we'll say it is at the moment. The next thing I read was not quite as good, and that was Savage City by L. Penelope. This one, I think, was trying to make a lot of statements, to say a lot of things, but ultimately wound up focusing too much on the romance. And this is a fantasy romance for a girl who dies in this world, and she wakes up in the body of the princess of another world and has no memory of what's going on in this new world. It's a post-apocalyptic world of our own, but with magic and the ability to shapeshift or take on the attributes of animals and spirits. And she forms this romantic entanglement with her healer, who's assigned to her because she has amnesia, and he is working for the enemy. So I think this would have worked better if maybe the author, she tried to tackle some really heavy topics in this, like in slavery, enslavement, subjugation, dehumanization, things like that, and I think perhaps that was a little too much, too heavy, considering that she then focused the story almost entirely on the romance when those brief moments of that thing were happening, and it felt like too little on one side and too much on the other, maybe. I'm not entirely sure yet. I think I gave this one like a 2.5, maybe a 3. I will continue with the series, but it's not one that I'm going to buy. I'm interested enough to see where the next book goes, because it's going to follow another couple still in the main contested area of the Bliss War that's happening. So that one wasn't quite as good for me. Then I read a bunch of manga. I read one picture book this week, and that was for me. I actually saw this on my Libby app. It's called Blue by Nana Akoya Brew Hammond. This is a nonfiction history picture book about the color blue and where the pigment comes from and different places and means in which we have obtained that pigment and that color. This was very fascinating. I knew a little bit about the color blue and where it came from just because it's something that was covered in my art history classes in college, but I hadn't given it much thought in the 5 or 6 years since I was in college. So it was nice to see that in again and to see it represented in a picture book. And the artwork in this was beautiful. It was in shades of blue. I wish I had taken some pictures to insert, but I did not, sadly. Or screenshots, rather. This is a little too old for my daughter's age range, which is right at 3. But, oh no! It's a cat. A cat. Ah! Oh no. Oh no. The cat jostled you. It's a little too old for a young toddler, I think. Let me fix. There. Is that better? Close enough. It's a little bit too young for a toddler's age, but I think a 4 or 5-year-old would be able to enjoy this a lot. So I would recommend it for that. And if you just enjoy picture books, I would recommend this as well. It also goes into possibly where we got phrases like "I'm feeling blue today." Just very, very fascinating, interesting children's book. I really enjoyed it. The last 2 books I read, the first, the 5-star of the week, was Seance Tea Party by Romena Ye, and I have some pictures of the artwork. This was a fantastic coming-of-age graphic novel story about a young girl who, she's not growing up with the same interests as her friends. She's more into spooky, creepy things like, cryptids, Bigfoot, ghosts, that sort of thing, and her friends are growing up interested in boys and girls and memes and all this stuff. And so she's about 12 years old when this starts, and one day she's lonely, she's by herself, and she goes up to her attic and makes her own Ouija board and summons the ghost. She basically wakes up a ghost that lives in the house, who also, she finds out, used to be her imaginary friend when she was a child. So she summons this ghost, and it is them together as she grows up, and eventually as the ghost also learns who she was previously and where her life, or undead life, has been, and eventually moving on. So it's a story both about appreciating what you have, appreciating growing old, and also finding magic in your everyday life. The artwork is very beautiful. It's full of fairies and beautiful colors, and the panels are almost always decorated around the edges, so it almost looks cluttered, but in a very cozy way. I would recommend this for cozy fantasy fans who like middle grade. I loved it myself, so I can't say enough good things about it. I will say, I know art taste can vary, and that cluttered feeling may not work for you, so maybe look at some, I included some images here, but also look up some images online as well, because I do realize that cluttered art style can be a little bit of a sensory overload for some, but I loved it. And the last book that I read, I have a lot of, I really, really liked parts of this, and I really, really disliked other parts of this. So this is Bears in Mind by Sam Hall, and this is an Australian bear shifter romance. And it's about a woman whose husband proposes that they commit to an open marriage, which basically, and this is no spoilers, this is so he can step out on her. He is abusive, he gaslights her, he neglects her, and he is abusive both on a physical level at points and always, almost every interaction on an emotional level. At the same time, a group of contractors move into her town, and they are there to restore a clock tower that she is in charge of. These contractors happen to be a band of bear shifters, and they claim that she is their one true mate, and they found her by searching the birth records and all this stuff, which I'm curious as to how that worked. It's not explained, but I'm curious. And so they begin this slow romance of trying to help her while she deals with her husband and all of the stuff, the fallout from this open marriage arrangement he wants. And he is just, it's pretty intense, it's very, it would be very triggering for some people, so please go into this with care, because he does some really, really nasty things. His family is nasty. She really only has a few people in her corner, so, like, I have a lot of concerns about it. Like, the longer I think about this book, the more I'm like, maybe it's not as good as I thought it would. Anyway, my two minor qualms. The first is the author used a very specific word. She used powerlifting when I think she meant bodybuilding, and then proceeded to make a snarky comment about supplements. And those two things, bodybuilding and powerlifting, she used it to describe the physique of one of the men. They are two very different physiques, and I think the physique she wanted was a bodybuilder. It was just very strange to see that word used in a romance novel, because I very rarely see that word used in a romance novel, because it's kind of one of those, like, specific words you hear thrown around in the fitness community, not so much outside of it. So that was weird, and I think it was incorrect, but I could be wrong. Also, she used the word rapey in a fun and quirky way to describe old, like, bodice ripper style romances, which made me uncomfortable at the very frequent use of it, and I just don't think that's a fun and quirky word to be using to describe anything at all. So there's that. Both of those also happened more towards the beginning of the book, and it kind of evened out at the end. But the biggest problem I had with this was one of the bear shifters' name is Coda. Now, in the story, you find out bears aren't native to Australia, and the bear shifters came over after one of the Great Wars and settled Australia because they felt they would be safe there. All the different families came over because in the Americas they were hunted. And it is strongly implied, never explicitly stated, but implied, that these families, some of them are Native American in bloodline, and Coda and his twin brother are implied to be so. They're described as such. They were coded that way. And Coda fits the very stereotypical Native American man stereotype that you see in older romances. He is tall, dark-skinned, he's aloof, but he's soft, and that stereotype. But also Coda is a dream walker, and you see this the first time he has a POV. He breaks and enters into her house and gets up to her room and stands at the foot of her bed and dream walks his way into her dreams, and then proceeds to have a very erotic, sexy time there using his dreamwalker powers. And it felt gross. It felt icky, and I didn't like it. In fact, I almost DNF'd the book. I pushed through because it's very short. It's less than 300 pages, and I liked a lot of what else was going on, but I really hated that. Really, really uncomfortable with Coda and the dreamwalking and how it was used, because it was used more than once, twice, or 3 times maybe, to do that sort of act, and it just felt... It made me uncomfortable. I am no expert. I don't have any cultural knowledge. I have Native ancestry, but no cultural ties to it. So, I'm no expert. But it did make me extremely uncomfortable, and I low-key hated it, and I really disliked Coda by the end of the book for that reason, because he was that stereotype, and that was a thing that he did. So, don't know very much if I would recommend it anymore the more I think about it, but it's something, if you don't think that'll bother you, it's something you might want to look into. There's going to be a second book. This also is not a complete story, which I didn't know going into it. So we have to wait for a second book to get the resolution, and it's on KU. So if you want to try it, it's on Kindle Unlimited. But that's everything that I have read the past week. I am almost done with Frontier by Grace Curtis, I believe is the name. And I will have a short up for that because I am loving that and where it's going, what it's doing. I'm also reading a couple graphic novels that I'll talk about next week. Hopefully next week this video will be up on time. It has been a rough week. There's always that period past holidays where things are just wild and in a mess. I don't know if it's just my life or if everyone else has this problem, but boy, wow. I'm also filming on my phone as opposed to my camera, so if audio or visual or anything is off, I do apologize. But that is it. Let me know what y'all think down below. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you've read any of these, let me know what you thought down below. And you know what? Let's do this. If you made it to the end of the video, the like 2 of you that might leave me a bear emoji, because I feel like the bears have been done dirty. I think maybe could have been done better. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I'll talk to you again soon.